Thank you for joining the BroadSky December webinar on a number of topics. We're going to talk about traffic acceleration or bonded SIMs that give you greater speed, and then the current lay of the land on 5G and 5G enabled solutions. There are numerous voices on the call today. Ron Ireland will speak, Maureen Donovan will speak, myself, Tom Benson, Bo Barker, VP of Technology, and then Kevin Brennan, our Northeast Channel Manager, is going to present a case study on a 2020 deal that came to BroadSky and some of the reasons why. So again, thank you all for joining. Let's get started. About BroadSky and some new information about BroadSky. BroadSky was founded in 2003. We're headquartered in Bend, Oregon, and we've been on the Inc. 5000 list now 4 years in a row, 2017 through 2020. We were also an MSP Channel Futures Award winner 2 years in a row, 2019, 2020. And I think the reason we put these up is not just brag book. The reason we put these up is to talk about acceptance in the marketplace and the acceleration and of the adoption of wireless services. We are very good at this, but one of the reasons we're allowed to be good at this is the technology that we're, the shoulders of the giants that we're standing upon really are solid. The LTE networks, when they debuted in say 2014, 2015, were delivering consistent speeds of 13 to 15 meg down. And now we're regularly seeing 100 plus meg in the marketplace when we can engineer properly. If you have an Apple i12, you're seeing some speeds that are even in excess of that. And those modems and those chipsets are coming into routers that we can place in the field starting Q1 of 2020-21. So the theme of wireless has been all the predictions are coming true. It's becoming more widely adopted, but and the towers are better, the routers are better, the overall technology set is better, but at the same time, it still requires an engineering company to get all that horsepower working for your customer. And that's where BroadSky sort of fits into the solution stack, is making sure you have the right equipment, the right carrier, and the right setup, and then tie it all together into one bill to make sure that it's the right solution for your customer. In addition to that, BroadSky has been acquired. I'm going to let Ron speak to that, but BroadSky is now part of a larger family of companies. Epic.io is the holding company for that, and we are being merged together with a company called IntelliSite, which is very exciting because they offer a full suite of IoT solutions that expands our service offerings tremendously. So Ron will get into that quite shortly. Today's agenda goes like this. First of all, BroadSky is purchased by IntelliSite. Now Ron will speak to that, and then we're going to look back at 2020, the year of COVID, of course, and how that shaped some of the future and accelerated some of the trends we were seeing anyway. Kevin's going to speak to a real world case study from 2020. And then we're going to talk about, Bo's going to talk about 5G and 5G ready solutions into 2021. The future is much closer. It's not quite here, but it's very, very close to deploying real world 5G. Then we're going to talk about some of the large deals and large opportunities just to give a flavor and an idea of what's out there in the marketplace. One of the themes that we've tried to introduce many times is that wireless is not just a cute add-on that might add $50 in MRC to your total solution. Wireless can deliver significant, persistent, measurable commissions really to a sales partner's portfolio, really for wireless only solutions or wireless embedded into your larger solution. And then finally, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. The concept of Q&A and the way you present this is there's two different methods of asking a question. Either ask a question in the Q&A box or ask a question in the chat box. And we'll answer all the questions in Q&A first, and then we'll answer all questions on the chat side. And we just read them out loud for the benefit of everyone, and then we answer them as best we can, depending on who's on the call and who can answer it best. Okay, so that is our agenda. Without further ado, let's get into it. I'm gonna have Ron Ireland, president of BroadSky Networks, speak to the recent merger of BroadSky with a company called IntelliSite and how Epic.io translates into that as well. Ron, go ahead, and I'll advance the slides when you call it.
Great, thanks, Tom. And, thank you, everyone, for attending this morning, this afternoon, wherever you might be. I'm going to correct one thing that Tom mentioned. He characterized this as a merger with IntelliSite and BroadSky. It's in fact an acquisition, and there's the reason I want to point out that difference is that IntelliSite and BroadSky will remain separate entities. We each have our own lane and business model and expectations for 2021, and that will certainly continue to be the case, where you'll see BroadSky. That name's not going to go away. The team is staying in place. The acquisition was by IntelliSite, but they formed this holding company called Epic.io as the technology holding company that owns both IntelliSite and BroadSky. What will merge is our product set. And I think that's the exciting part for our partners, people on this call, is that, and we'll talk about it in a sec, the idea that we'll be able to share products across our platforms is going to be really, really exciting for you guys and open up all kinds of opportunities on the sales side. And that's really the exciting part here. And I want to start with that nothing changes from the team standpoint. You'll continue to be supported by the groups that support you today. It's really just an add in terms of the product set. So Tom, if you'll advance real quick. This is the leadership team at the Epic.io level. The C-suite will reside there. Ken Mills, our Chief Executive Officer, Michael Knight, JP Kenny, and then not pictured here is a CFO, Steve Martin, who will reside at Epic.io and oversee the activities of both IntelliSite and BroadSky. I'll continue to run BroadSky day to day and all of our efforts in the channel. And then my peer on the IntelliSite side, Mario Campos, will be working closely together to bring these products to you. And then also on the IntelliSite side, we'll be providing connectivity services to their sales team. Next slide, Tom. Oh, excuse me. I want to also mention, I do want to, we're obviously going to open this up to questions. And Ken Mills is on the call with us today. He'll be available during the Q&A period as well. And then, thanks for letting me hijack the meeting here. I know we had a regularly planned webinar, but I really thought this was important and wanted to get this information out to you guys. There'll be some additional partner communication letters going out. And of course, your channel managers, myself, always available to answer any questions you might have. Taking a quick look at IntelliSite's product set, what we're really excited about is I know from a partner perspective, this whole idea of IoT has been a little bit nebulous. What is it exactly? How do I approach a customer and ask, do you need IoT? That doesn't really, it's not a great starter. And so the idea that IntelliSite comes to us with fully baked solutions in the IoT world, and in particularly with edge-based video capabilities, with artificial intelligence built into the device right there at the edge. This is the exciting part. You will see in future communications exactly what these products do and understand how to prospect, how to target new customers, and how to go back into your own base of customers and approach them with a solution that either maybe they haven't thought of, or that they're looking for, or that they would find beneficial in their business. So as we look at their full solution of IoT and AI, and we're looking, the attractiveness of BroadSky was that we can provide all the connectivity for those solutions that they're already selling. So we're not changing in terms of what we do for you today in terms of failover, primary internet, LTE POTS replacement, bandwidth aggregation. These are all still, our focus and our core, but we're going to be able to bring and supplement our product portfolio with what IntelliSite does today. Really excited about that. The more conversations I have with the team on the IntelliSite side, the more excited I am. As a point of interest, IntelliSite was really just beginning to get some inroads into the channel. They were looking at becoming a supplier for a couple of the large master agencies, national agencies in the US. And this acquisition obviously gives us an opportunity to bring those products through the BroadSky relationships that already exist with all of the national master agencies. So you'll have access to these regardless of your path of choice. Tom, go ahead and advance real quick. Just a little bit deeper dive into their technology, particularly around the video surveillance. Think smart cities. Think artificial intelligence that can recognize a pedestrian, recognize whether or not they stay within the lines of a crosswalk, counting near misses for traffic safety issues, being able to scan a license plate and at an intersection to determine whether a vehicle is stolen or whether it's related to an Amber Alert or for whatever a reason might be there. I think storage yards, construction yards, after dark public parks or places that require some surveillance. What's interesting about their technology is everything's done at the edge in terms of video storage and the AI piece, so really eliminating the need for heavy data transmission unless a user is observing live video or downloading clips. So it really lends itself well to a wireless connectivity kind of solution. So super excited about what this means for you guys in terms of opportunity. If you have something immediately that you went, oh my gosh, this sets off a light bulb, talk to your channel manager. They'll get you in touch with the right group at IntelliSite for now. But look for these products to be integrated in short order through BroadSky. So obviously more detail, more information to come on that. So let's go ahead and go to the last slide there. For me, again, thanks for letting me hijack the meeting here. Some key takeaways. Don't worry, BroadSky is here. Our leadership team at BroadSky remains the same faces. Tom, Maureen, Bo will be here to lead the charge. Our focus remains on the channel. And then we're just going to, the bottom line here is you're going to get an expanded portfolio of products. We will begin to look more international. As you know, today we're really focused on the US and Canada, but IntelliSite comes to us with offices in Argentina, Costa Rica, and Mexico. So starting with South America, we'll begin to expand our international reach. I'm excited. I hope that you guys will see the opportunity here. I really believe that in 2021 we're going to be able to do some great things together, and so that's the brief, very quick overview of the acquisition. This is a great thing for us as a team, and I think you'll hear that enthusiasm as we move forward together. Maureen, I want to give you just a quick opportunity to say anything, and then we'll let the team get on with what I know is some great information on the status of 5G today and a use case.
Great. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, that was a great recap, and I won't take too long, but just wanted to reiterate, as we work in the channel and we work with you guys every day, how excited the team on BroadSky is about this, the acquisition that's been made, and really what's coming together and what we can offer in the channel. And this is really an incredible opportunity, obviously, for the partners and your customers. So, BroadSky works very hard to really be the latest, to offer the latest solutions in wireless and connectivity, which you will find out from Tom and Kevin and Bo here in a little bit. But staying on the forefront of what the latest is, when 5G is getting here, what's the fastest speeds we can offer now, what are these great solutions that we offer now. We try so hard to do that and communicate and work well with you. And now we'll open that up to IoT and AI solutions. So I've been talking about IoT for years. We've done a lot of panels with you. We've done some basics, but this really brings it home to offer really specific solutions for your customers, really next level, to let you help your customers, and then in turn, obviously, position you better with newer opportunities. So I'll stop rambling, but very, very excited. So reach out to your channel managers. If you don't have one, we'll show you at the end who is. Look for more communication and webinars on this and trainings, but excellent, great stuff coming into 2021. I'm going to hand it back to Tom to get on with the webinar, and thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, there's a lot of opportunities coming down the pike that are building on what we've already built. Let's talk a little bit about what we've already built and what's been proven to be wildly successful in 2020. BroadSky grew in 2020. Never mind COVID. We kept our growth rate. We anticipate being in 5,000 fastest growing again in 2021. So wireless did not slow down, and a lot of the user trends that were happening anyway, whether it be work from home or pop-up retail or people putting more intelligence, more connectivity out to the edge that's moving. All of those trends happened in 2020. And in many cases, COVID accelerated that. Some of the things we talked about over the year and sort of the year in review, if you will, we talked about quality to wireless. There's a lot of people putting wireless devices out there and just assuming it will work. That doesn't happen. You actually have to engineer the right router for the route application with the right carrier, and then make sure it interacts with all the right applications. And that's where we set ourselves apart. When I started doing this in 2014, I could maybe count 2 competitors, and now I can count dozens. It seems easy to get into this, and in a certain sense, it is easy to get into this. You buy a router, you slap a SIM card in, and you're in the wireless business. But then you find as it grows that it's not so easy, and you need to start adding complexity as each application changes. So we talked about how we engineer quality in our sort of our summer webinar series, if you will. Then we moved over to the summer of speed, where we were talking about how we accelerate traffic, and this is 5G independent. We are putting routers out there that combine multiple frequencies from the carrier that get over 100 meg regularly in the field. Then we can start to bond those together. And so we're starting to get into that 200, 300, theoretical 400 meg download scenarios for customers who need it. We present some use cases for pop-up retail, for events where people need large amounts of bandwidth on a temporary basis, and how that grew into a larger opportunity for retail chains. So just different tips of the spear that you can put in. And then finally, we went into power of Gigabit LTE and real-world 5G as 5G emerges. So the theme on all of this that we're trying to get across is that wireless is everywhere. If you think about a wireless network, it powers your phone, yes, but it's also a national internet platform that works reasonably the same everywhere and can be brought together under one pane of glass with one router manufacturer deployed by BroadSky on a quality basis. So wherever your customer is, whether they're fixed or mobile, we can get them a wireless signal. And there really isn't another carrier who can say that. The wireless carriers will present that they can, but they all have coverage dead spots. So that's when you start introducing a multi-carrier solution. So wherever your customer is and whatever your customer is doing, we can help them get to that. Fastest growing industries that we've continually, and again, 2020 showed the same results. Construction, healthcare, finance, pop-up retail, and energy. If you have any exposure to any of those verticals, and I would include just retail on top of pop-up retail. If you look at our 2 largest customers at BroadSky, one is a quick serve restaurant chain you've heard of, and one of them is a large national retail chain that you've heard of. And they're using us for backup and primary at every location. They bill well into the 6 figures. These are commission changing, revenue stream changing events. And both of those started with 1 site and then 10 sites and then grew to 100 sites and then to 1,000 sites. And so and when we get to that proving ground stage, the first 10 will work, the next 100 will work, the next 1,000 will work. And that's how it works in wireless every time, is your first 10 of the proving ground. It actually gets easier from there, but it has to work in every location every time or the project stops. And that's what we're committed to. So that's sort of a global view, but if I drill it down into a use case view, a lot of the opportunities that we've come across and been able to deliver over the last 6 years. So customers in auto repair chain, they're in multi-location, multi-state, and they need a primary and failover. This is pretty typical for us. When we say primary and failover, what usually happens is the company comes to us and wants failover at one location, or they come to us and they want to have a hotspot device they can deliver at any time in case a store goes out. I was just talking to a guy yesterday they've started on that basis. They have 1 router from BroadSky that they send out in the event of a failure. They sent it out to 1 location. This was a quick serve restaurant. They ran it on BroadSky for 3 weeks solely because they had no wired internet. And then when that was done, they're bringing it back to the store and they're going to do it for the next deployment. That's been the starting point numerous times.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Kevin, we can hear you now.
Yeah, a little bit of a blip here in the snowstorm. So.
Okay, well, I got you started.
Well, I appreciate that. I need all the help I can get. So thank you. So yes, good afternoon, good evening. Sorry about that, and happy holidays to everybody. So yeah, this is a great opportunity I want to bring to everybody's forefront because, it's a very attainable multi-site opportunity that's out there in the marketplace today. And it really illustrates some really key points about what are the challenges when you get into multi-site applications. So, this happened to be an auto repair / kind of body shop franchise. It led us out to the Midwest with multiple locations out there. Some of the challenges that they did have there was single carrier. That is going to be something I'm going to come back to again in the solution phase as well, to really hammer that home as to why that's a big challenge in multi-site locations or deployments, if you will. And unreliable signal strength. So not only do they have challenges, with the multi-locations, because of those locations, and some of those locations in the Midwest were not, in the most densely populated areas, if you will, that was a problem a little bit. And they were deploying some pretty lower end equipment. I wouldn't consider it necessarily business grade. So those two factors alone led right into poor coverage and poor performance. So the other big thing that they were kind of getting rubbed the wrong way with, they were continuously getting overages at certain locations and just handed the bill at the end of the month and saying, here it is, to make sure you pay on time. And, the client did not really appreciate that fact with any real adjustment ability or anything like that. And that also led them to an investigation to where some sites are, even though they were getting those overage bills for certain locations, they were turning around and getting looking at sites that were being underutilized. So it was a real big imbalance there. Is, why are we paying overages here and then we're not getting any credit for the underutilized locations? And a lot of that led into also the tools that they had. They had no real visibility into looking at more than one site at one time. And that's a big challenge when you're doing multi-site. It's a lot of work to sit there and look at one site by one site by one site. You never really get the big picture a lot of times unless you're doing a lot, investing a lot of time in it. And they just didn't have the time to sit there and do that on a regular basis, a weekly basis, even to really catch up and see what's happening with their network. So what we did is we came up a little proof of concept for them. We put some nice routers out for them to test and put into play. So that led us to the results. So Tom, if you go to the next slide. So the solution came down to, we put a bundled solution. And for those of you who do not know what our bundled solution is, that is the router maintenance, the cloud management software, the support, and your data package all tied into one piece. So it makes a very, very all-inclusive, almost managed router out there in the workplace for these people to use. From the 20 original stores, we're heading up into the 36 and more range as they open new places. So this is a growing opportunity. It's always nice when you get multi-site opportunities that they continue to grow. Some, they all start as one somewhere at some point in time, or, maybe a couple, but they, a lot of these multi-sites that you see out there in the workplace today, started at a much smaller number. So they're always great to get on those, especially on the early level. The multi-carrier solution, this is really about the right equipment and the right carrier. It says increased bandwidth at speed at each site. That is really a result of us putting better equipment out there and choosing that carrier that is best served at the location. We pre-engineer all of our deployments down to the site address level. So we are always looking down to say, at this location, what is the best carrier? What is the best solution that gives you the best speed and the best reliability among the big three carriers, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. So we are always looking at that. I went back and I said earlier, one of the problems they had was a single carrier solution. We all, at least on this side of the house, we always know that when we hear there's a single carrier solution in a multi-site, especially geographically dispersed deployment, that there's a potential problem. No one carrier can be the best carrier at all locations. Even if you apply common sense, you drive from one side of your town to the next side of town, your cell phone coverage varies. And there's a lot of other factors into getting the best speed when you're talking wireless. So multi-site locations imperatively, and any location for that matter, but especially in multi-site, a single carrier solution usually ends up being a problem. We get a lot of phone calls, on a regular basis about those kind of deployments that just don't pan out. So that has been one of the big key things that shifted this and really got them better performance and better coverage. Some of those sites that I originally said they had 20 did not even have coverage yet because the carrier just could not deliver to that location. The other key things that really made them happy and obviously gave them a lot more tools is, within our data management pieces, they had multi-carrier data that was pooled together. So instead of having a single site plan at each location, we can create one giant pool of data. And that pool of data can be accessed then by all the sites collectively on a monthly basis. So that gave them a lot of flexibility when one site was going over and the other site was underutilizing. Having that giant pool that they could all access from kind of balance that out, and also gave them a single point of management where they can kind of see exactly what they're using across the organization collectively for data. We also gave them some management tools. So not only can they go see a lot of statistics and whatever, but we're also proactively monitoring how much data they're using. We have email alerts that go out, based on thresholds on a monthly usage basis to notify the clients to say, hey, you're trending to go over, you are over plan. We also as a team have people watching that data, and also collectively looked at our usage reports on a regular basis every week to proactively go out to the partners and also to the clients if need be to say, hey, look, you're going over plan. We need to do something. What would you like to do? The also thing is that we do that is very unique is we adjust the data on a monthly basis. So we can move plans up and down. We do it generally on the third week of the billing cycle every month and allow people to adjust. We do not want overages. No one wants overages. They're costly. And that's what this customer is coming from, a real bad situation of getting hit with overages on a regular basis. So what we did is we put in a system there that they can adjust on a monthly basis and then also start their plan back from normal this next month. So there's a lot of flexibility when we do those data plan managements. And of course, the software that we put in place, that cloud management software, now they get full visibility of all their devices from one single pane of glass instead of having to go device. So that made it very, very nice for them. And obviously a huge time saving as opposed to going in and being able to go device and log in each one to see all that information, and also not the ability now to see the whole big picture at one glance. The other key thing is, the single invoice. And if there was accounting people right now, they'd probably stand up and clap when I'm done saying this. It doesn't matter what state you're in, what county, what town, what carrier you're using. We provide one broad sky invoice. So that is a great reduction in, as far as accounts payable goes, to track all that, pay all that, keep tabs on all that information and make sure it's done on a timely basis. One broad sky information, bill that gives all that information right on one sheet of paper. And of course, support. There's no having, hardware carrier over here, different carriers over there, all those diverse pieces and different companies that you have to deal with. It is one support system under the broad sky umbrella. And, these people in our engineering team are super. They live, breathe, and eat wireless every single day. That is all they do. So they are totally dedicated to making sure you're getting the best service and support for your wireless systems. And that is pretty much that case study. It's a great example of how multi works and some of the challenges that can go into it, but they're great opportunities. And we were very pleased with this and how it's come out. So Tom, you can take over and advance to the next slide.
Kevin, what was the time to deployment on this from first scoping call to POC, a full solution?
Yeah, the first POC solution went out. We had it in their hands in 5 business days. So one of the nice things about wireless is, as you know well, Tom, is that, it is a fast deployment. We can have it out there even faster, usually just by changing shipping methods, but 5 business days to have a working router on site or in somebody's hands versus, 3 to 6. And as far as we've seen in the lately, 8 or plus more weeks is a huge turnaround time, for anybody.
Okay. And then how long did it take to get all 36 stores up and running?
All 36 stores were shipped within, I think, 45 days, and they were installed.
Okay. So scope to deployment to first build a commission was like 3 months. I mean,
that's correct.
And the point I'm making is that we can deploy this. This isn't something that needs to drag out over the year. If you have an opportunity that you're talking to now, we could have a meaningful impact on them. I've seen 100-site deals go out in 2 months. 2 to 3 months is pretty typical. So this is something that's available now and can be installed without an enormous amount. We'll be careful about it, but it's not something you can be working on all year. And once it's deployed and it's working, you can move on to the next opportunity. Yeah, awesome. It's a nice deal. Okay, so moving on from what's been done and what's available, we want to talk about what's been done. We want to move on to what's becoming available. Everybody's talking about 5G right now, and I will comment that 5G on the drawing board in 5 years ago, 2015, was considered a mmWave technology that would support 1.2 to 2 gig of download speed. That technology is coming available. That's called Verizon wideband, ultra wideband, I believe. But they've shifted the goalpost a little bit on 5G as we've come closer to actually rolling this out. It's now more of a blended spectrum use, where we're going to be using mmWave, which is the fastest possible, but also sub-gigahertz spectrum, channel bonding, and then Gigabit LTE, which is, again, that's channel bonding from the carrier. There's a lot of terms getting thrown around right now, and to help decipher the clutter, Bo Barker, our VP of Technology, is going to walk through the next couple of slides to talk about where we're going, where we're at, and what can be done right now from a technology perspective. Bo, go ahead.
Awesome, thanks. So basically, we have this layer cake approach. The carriers have obviously deployed a great deal of spectrum and tower locations and backhaul all around the 4G network. Um, Essentially, the 5G network is totally different. It's a fundamental change from the core routing technologies used in the 4G network. It's a different symboling technology, and hence those higher speeds and lower latency. There's a lot more that goes into it, and we're really not on this webinar today. We're not going to take that deep dive into all of those technical elements. But from a frequency perspective, what we can really see here is that 4G spectrum is a little bit lower on the scale, and it does spread out further than even the mid-band, the sub-6 gigahertz 5G spectrum. And then when we get into that millimeter wave piece, as Tom said, it doesn't propagate well, but that higher frequency allows for more data to be transmitted at a higher speed. So combining all of these technologies together presents the best possible wireless technology. And so what we have today, what's coming out, as Tom said, Verizon's using ultra wideband. So their 5G millimeter wave, where it's available, is operating on that really high spectrum. So as you're walking down a sidewalk in a very dense urban area, a large city, you'll pick up on that signal. When you go into a building, that signal is not going to be inside the building anymore. It stops at kind of the walls and those obstructions there. So that's where the 5G sub-6 gigahertz can kind of penetrate into buildings and make that connection inside. And then as a backup to all of this is still 4G. 4G still has a long lifespan, and it will be that underlying structure as these 5G networks are built out. And so in this next slide, we'll look at some of the use cases based on those different symboling technologies. And I'll start off at the top. Really 5G millimeter wave, that is the ultra low latency, ultra fast connectivity. So we'll see that in manufacturing, in the use of drones and video and everything that those broadcast back. Virtual reality, augmented reality, smart cities where traffic controls are being incorporated. You really, in particular, in that instance, the network needs to be able to respond in real time. So that's traffic controls and some of those analytic components that we showed earlier. As far as, is someone walking across a crosswalk, all of that is being built into some of these technologies that are coming out today. So the IoT devices, machine recognition, machine learning. Then in the sub-6 gigahertz range, because it has a broader spread and broader coverage area, we see the autonomous driving sort of fitting into that area of wireless technology. All of your wireless WAN sources are really going to be driven off of 5G sub-6 gigahertz, unless you're in one of those areas where millimeter wave's available. And we'll talk about that in some of the equipment offerings slides that are coming up later. Again, a traffic failover, so a backup to that 5G millimeter wave network, mobile streaming, and private LTE networking will sort of all fall into this. And the use cases are still very broad and very much relevant for 4G technologies in rural environments where you have sensors. Perhaps it's a farming operation, for wireless failover, for mobile or pop-up retail. POTS replacement really fits well in this category. The agriculture, the autonomous driving and ag, temperature monitoring, some of those IoT applications that aren't latency specific. See a lot of adoption in mobile healthcare and event streaming. And with the event streaming, we typically use different technologies oftentimes to increase upload speeds so they can stream high definition or 4K video. So in these upcoming slides, we'll take a look at a little bit more information about what is coming out and kind of the state of the state. So in the environment today, I think the carriers historically have always focused on consumer grade hardware first. And really getting that technology out to the hands of the consumers, and to be honest, to fund that for business and enterprise. From a business and enterprise perspective, we all pay a lot of money, for these types of technologies, but it's the consumer base that's driving these products out to market. So fortunately, we're now at this inflection point where handheld devices such as the iPhone 12, some of the Samsungs, your mobile handsets that are out on the market now are capable of both 4G and 5G. So they have both radio modules in there. And then we're starting to get into the MiFis. There are MiFi devices releasing that are capable of 5G. One thing I will say here is really these are, obviously cell phones, MiFis have a place in the enterprise network component. We all use our cell phones. Sometimes we travel, we use these MiFi devices, but they're really not meant to drive offices of people. There's some security components that are just not there in those type of devices. So they're really meant for personal use. And in the case of MiFis, you have a limited number of users that you can connect. Typically, you're connecting only to that device via Wi-Fi. So there's some challenges there. Some of them do have some built-in security features like VPN pass-through and things like that. But most models we've always seen in the market are single SIM. So we kind of go back to the use case where Kevin was talking, single SIM isn't necessarily the best robust deployment type. And with those MiFis, you have really limited antenna capabilities. So they're not meant to go into your MDFs or IDFs or into the network rack where, they're essentially surrounded by a Faraday cage. That's a bad thing for signaling. So what's coming out? For enterprise, we have been on track with most of the major manufacturers. So there are a couple that we work with very closely. We've seen the preliminary specs on this hardware that's releasing. And so today, what's available are 5G ready routers. They don't have the 5G module in them yet, but they can accept one when those modules release. And we anticipate a Q1 2021 launch of this hardware from those major manufacturers. The modules are made and carrier certifications are getting done, and all of that network technology and update to the network is ongoing. So there are routers in our portfolio today that will be ready for 5G when it becomes available commercially, and when that hardware becomes available for enterprise. And so that can include something as basic as a 5G modem insert. And in this illustration here, this model has a 4G LTE modem in it already, and it also has an expansion bay where the 5G module can be put in. So that allows that upgrade path to 5G. There are other things releasing. We talked about the mmWave not penetrating into buildings. There are hardware, there is hardware releasing that will pick up mmWave, but it has to be mounted outside and it has to sort of be pointed and focused towards the towers. So BroadSky is, and we have historically installed external antennas. We have that capability and that experience and knowledge, which will really come into play for mmWave deployments. So this is enterprise grade, enterprise class. You can connect many, many users. We have 5 to 60 here. There are some boxes that handle many, many more users than that. We have dual and quad SIM models. And so some of those other models that we talk about can not only do 5G, but they can bond all of that technology together into a single fat pipe. So if you can imagine, if you're getting advertised rates of 100 to 200 megabits on 4G, plus your 5G connectivity, now multiply that by 2 or 4, or up to 18 on one really large model. These are all cloud-based. So not only do you get that visibility, but there are regulatory compliance pieces that the cloud-based monitoring fits into, where it locks the configuration to that cloud config. So even if the unit on site is accidentally reset by a user with a paper clip, it will reboot come back online and pick up its original configuration. And we do have static IPs available. I know that's kind of a downward trend in the market today with SD-WAN technologies and all of that, but there are some deployments where that's still very much important to have a public IPv4 static IP address, and we offer those across all those carriers. And let's jump to the next slide, please, Tom.
Okay. So we wanted to talk about, again, deal size. You know, we're talking about wireless technology, we're talking about 5G coming out, but at the end of the day, what we really want to talk about and what people are interested in is how does this affect my ever-growing MRC pipeline, and is it worth my time to invest into this versus something else? Because every technology, of course, is scrambling for your attention. To Bo's points, if you need speed, and we're trying to put this message out as broadly as we possibly can, and this is one of our main methods of doing that. If you need speed, or you need backup speed, BroadSky can engineer that. And nobody ever wanted their internet to go slower. We have the ability to bring in a wireless circuit and also accelerate even the ground-based circuits into speeds that otherwise wouldn't have been available. So speed on wireless is ever growing. We have the ability to engineer that for your end user, either in a fixed position or in a mobile position or in a fixed to mobile, like a construction trailer, for instance, or if they're moving around and then stopping. In all cases, getting speed to that facility, that's what we do. So these are some of the places that it's sort of playing out and applying in the marketplace. I won't read this slide by slide, or line by line, but these are just different opportunities and different industries you'll notice. So you see retail show up, you see transportation show up, you see restaurants show up, you see digital signage show up, and then you see energy show up. If you think of any customer that's operating multiple sites and needs monitoring of some kind, either how much did I sell today? What is my valve saying? Am I in compliance with my EPA? Are my cameras working? How many people came in and out of the door today? Or if you look at the IntelliSite offerings, when did my customer just pull up into the parking lot in order to get their delivery? And how do I recognize that before they walk in the door? These are all things that BroadSky can deliver in 2021. The beauty of wireless is that it's everywhere and we can make it go fast everywhere. The downside of wireless is that I can't tell you one industry to chase because we're applicable to just about all of them. If you have a single site that has a gig fiber circuit and they don't want failover, I might not have anything for them, but most companies need failover because if that gig fiber circuit disappears, now what? Most multi-location want one offering in every location. And so wireless just applies in so many different directions and gets embedded into small companies, medium and large size companies, so that we have something for everyone. And I can tell you when it comes time to do the scoping of it and the application of it and talking to the chief security officers for it. And I didn't even mention financial institutions, which is another large segment for us. We'll have seen their application or something very similar to it before, and we're gonna be able to hang with them as we go through that scoping process. We're not gonna run into, well, we don't know how to do that. Well, I don't think we can get coverage there. I'm not so sure. That's not what we do. We separate ourselves for being to stay with the opportunity all the way through it. So these are the things we're working on now. And I think if the people on this call dug into this just a little bit further, you would see this list triple. There's an enormous amount of opportunity in wireless coming up in 2021.
Yeah, Tom,
yes.
If I could, just before you move on from that slide, just a quick shout out to our friends at RDS Solutions. I know they just announced this morning, if you're familiar with IntelliSite's Drive for 5 competition that they announced 5 years ago, RDS Solutions accomplished the unthinkable and hit $5 million in monthly billing. So a shout out to both IntelliSite and RDS Solutions for sure. As we look at if we look at a pipeline and we think about how wireless can add to our partners' overall billing and commission flow, we've seen partners of all sizes benefit, and certainly a way to go, RDS, on getting that done, and really happy to have them as a partner. So anyway, wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, if we were part of that 5 million, that's a nice goal for everyone here. Geez, 5 million, that's a lot. So in summary, 2021 is going to be the year of wireless. One of the things that's flipping in this industry is that a lot of times we bring the technology out that isn't heavily advertised. Nobody advertises SD-WAN on television. Wireless is not going to be the case. The airwaves, the internet, the television are going to be inundated with 5G ads in 2021. It's going to be obnoxious how many 5G ads you're going to see, and that inevitably is going to deliver in the business community. How can this help me? What can this do for me? And so BroadSky is here to deliver actual 5G performance, including getting it inside the building, which nobody wants to talk about, but 5G signal just doesn't penetrate buildings. It just doesn't. And so we'll be able to get that speed into the building and accessed by the end users. There's going to be an engineering piece to that that's going to require putting antennas up. We've been putting antennas up for 17 years. And so that's a skill set in and of itself. You don't want to be entering the learning curve on that right now. And then bringing in the right equipment, bonding them together, delivering ultimate speeds for the business. They essentially say, how fast do you want to go and what's your budget for it? And we'll deliver them various options, starting with premium and then gearing it down to what do you really want based on the budget you have for speed right now. And then be able to give them an upgrade path as 5G components become more prevalent and lower in cost, that they can move into that whenever the budget allows. Multi-site, multi-carrier opportunity. This is the core of what BroadSky does. You still need to deploy on a multi-carrier solution. That's never going to change. There's always going to be dead spots from each carrier. They can only invest so much money and they only have so much time. And so what you'll see is one carrier has ultimate speeds in this location, but they're not so great another one. I just did a site qualification for an 800 site deal. We want to show them an example of our site qualification. AT&T came back 3 times faster in this particular case than the other 2 carriers, based on how we did a virtual site survey and reached out to a crowdsourcing tool that showed actual performance speeds and speed tests that have been done at that address. And AT&T was 3x faster than the other 2. That quality measure alone derives quality performance at every location. And if Kevin mentioned it on his case study, we do that qualification process on a per address basis for every opportunity. So that's how we deliver ultimate performance. Even on the carrier maps, it looks like all 3 have coverage. The truth is, one is usually the fastest at a certain location. With the IntelliSite suite of capabilities, we're now going to be delivering IoT and AI solutions across the channel. This is going to open up numerous opportunities. If you wanted to deep dive just on this, you could probably build a career on it. And this is something we now can deliver to all our sales partners throughout 2021. The range of customers and the range of opportunities in wireless and the awareness of what wireless is and that it's ready for prime time, it's all coming together to make 2021 the year of wireless. And we truly believe that we are the gold standard provider in this space. We've proven that year after year, deployment after deployment, and that's not going to change on a go forward basis. In fact, we now have sort of more resources available to us with the larger corporate entity that we can really drill into delivering the cutting edge solutions to the sales channel and to customers across the country. Okay, so that was a summary and that was a lot. We're gonna go to the Q&A and I'm gonna go to the Q&A section first and then go to the chat section first. As a reminder, Ken Mills, the CEO of Epic.io, is also on the call. So if we had a question directed towards him, just tap it into the Q&A of the chat and I'll make sure that Ken answers that. Otherwise, the format is we read the answer we read the question, then we go ahead and give the answer as best we can for the benefit of everybody. Okay, first question from Peter Freiberg is, does connectivity solutions include an SD-WAN option? There'd be 2 voices on this answer, me and then Bo. BroadSky has always focused on delivering the wireless connectivity piece and not focused on delivering something that we would call competing to something else. What we see is that we get brought into opportunities that are usually multi-vendor. And so there might be a VoIP solution, an SD-WAN solution, a cloud storage solution. What we've always focused on is delivering the wireless connectivity piece and then making sure it interacts with all the other applications. Our job is to make sure that when and if you use wireless, everything works properly. I believe, and Bo can confirm this, we have connected to and interact with probably every SD-WAN provider out there, or at least every notable SD-WAN provider out there. I know we're connected to Ariaka and VeloCloud and Silverstream, and I'm sure I'm forgetting people, but the big names out there in SD-WAN, we're occupying one of the WAN ports in that SD-WAN box. And Bo, your thoughts on our SD-WAN complementary solution?
I would say that, oops, sorry. There is an SD-WAN component built into the particular product set that we have. As Tom said, in the channel, we don't want to get in front of you if you have an SD-WAN solution in your portfolio that you're selling. We're not trying to be an SD-WAN provider, but again, there is an SD-WAN element to the bonded solution in that product set where you can application steer, traffic steer, choose which WAN source. So really, it's a definition of SD-WAN and what is a good fit. So yes and no. And then in another part of our portfolio is an SDN type solution. So in some cases, that software-defined networking meets the need, and that's baked in to that product. So yes and no.
Yeah, SD-WAN Lite, and setting up, for instance, setting up site-to-site VPN tunnels on our solution is incredibly easy. So it's possible that we can provide the routing up to a point where an SD-WAN box isn't necessary. But then once you kick over to, the more complex set of what the SD-WAN does, then we would divert over to a connectivity solution. Okay. Peter had a follow-up question. Overages stink. That's pretty close to what he said. Do you offer overdraft protection plan that automatically kicks in, or just the email notifications? Great point. Great question. Overages are the worst part about wireless. Everything else is great, but you want to make sure that you're using wireless for your solution and for nothing else. And so if it's a profitable use of bandwidth, it makes sense. So if we're going to traffic accelerate a Zoom call that 50 people are on, we should do that, but we don't want to use the wireless for Pandora because that doesn't make any sense. So the way we protect against that is one, we can do, there's a security suite you can put on that blocks certain applications or eliminates certain applications. I've seen that cut traffic by 90%. We can make sure that when you fail over to the wireless, only certain applications are done. If you're in a traffic acceleration scenario, then we will only do it on an application basis, not accelerating all traffic, because that makes no sense. On the pooling side, as Kevin spoke to, we do put everything into a pool and all sites draw from that common pool. So one site won't kick you over until it's exhausted the entire pool. We don't want people to exhaust the entire pool, but that pool is there mathematically to help everyone out. And then BroadSky does an alerting system where if a site is going over, you get an alert. If in the aggregate you look to be going over projected usage, you get an alert. And if people are looking at those alerts, they will be informed in real time. And then finally, to the last part of your question, do we offer an automatic overage protection? We do. It's auto upgrade, I believe is what we call it, where we'll just move you to the next applicable plan size as opposed to getting an overage bill. The reason I put that last is because I want to deploy every other tool first to limit traffic. We don't like large wireless bills at BroadSky. I know that seems counterintuitive, but we really don't. We want people using the traffic for what they're happy to use it for, what they plan to use it for, and then the bill that shows up was in the budget that they budgeted for this. That's what leads to people continuing to roll it out over their suite and over their location suite, and then that's what allows sales partners to confidently go to their next opportunity and say, you will be in control of your overage. I know it, I've seen it, it works. And so we don't like big bills. I can go to auto upgrade at the end, but we want to do everything possible to not use the traffic first, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm moving over to the chat side, and I'm just going to go to the top and goes for more. Okay. A question from Chris. Could you give an example of mobile HD streaming? Oh, wow. So this would be in the broadcast side. I'll give you one example. ESPN came to us, actually the production crew for ESPN came to us and they were doing Ultimate Frisbee of all things. They were broadcasting the Ultimate Frisbee Championships and the Ultimate Frisbee League. And these people would tend to go where there's a big field and some stands, but there weren't built-in broadcast facilities. They're not in stadiums yet. And so at times they needed to broadcast this event and they were using routers from BroadSky. We sent them a mobile router with multiple SIM cards in it. When they got on site, we'd pick the strongest carrier. They would go with that. They would broadcast for 3 days. This was full ESPN quality streaming that was broadcast over, out over the cable networks, and they were happy with it. that's one example I can give of mobile HD streaming. We've had some other broadcast opportunities come up recently that I'm not as familiar with, but I don't recall who it was. Who was that? That's an open question to the Broad Sky people on the call.
The most recent recall an off location filming for a production that's supposed to be coming out. So Hollywood production, off location film site.
Yes, that's what it was. Where we were actually doing it wasn't the main, they weren't broadcasting the main camera stream because that would get ridiculous, but they were sending all the pre-production art, all the setup locations. They were broadcasting, they were recording the actual footage on site onto a hard drive, but all of the control and all of the control room stuff was coming through us for this location because where they were filming, there was no internet. So that's two examples of a mobile HD that we put out in the field. Vinay asked a question, enterprise grade 5G routers that support large users need cloud security as well as configuration bonded to that unit. Yeah, so we can either interact with the firewall on site or there is firewall capabilities within our routers as well. And I think that was you.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. You know, the security component of it is obviously very important, particularly in business and enterprise. And there are a lot of different solutions that revolve around our deployments. Tom mentioned the bolt-on for basically DNS and DNS protection / content filtering. That's one layer of it. There is a cloud security component behind this. And it can be expanded upon, particularly in the example of the hardware that bonds technologies together, bonds circuits together. If you look at that in terms of the endpoint being a virtual machine, perhaps in AWS or Google, you can bolt on Palo Alto firewalls, Cisco firewalls, routing, switching, are mostly all virtualized now and can be bolted into that virtualized environment. So there's a whole suite of security that can come with this. It's really right sizing and developing that right solution. But great point, really great point.
Okay. I'm going to take a chance here because I'm not certain if this is going to work on panelists or audio, but Ken Mills is on the call. Ken is the CEO of Epic.io, and he had an example of that. What I'm not certain is if Ken is unmuted and able to speak. So Ken, if you talk and the people hear you?
Yep, I'm speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. We can hear you just great. Ken Mills is the CEO of Epic.io and my new boss. And and so we're just getting to know each other, but this is technically working out. And he had an example on the HD, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of IntelliSite, we have deployed a number of 5G video transmission solutions for traffic systems. We actually deployed the first 5G intelligent traffic system in California, first 5G deployment ever for video. And that was for high definition video for traffic analysis in a few cities in California. We also recently upgraded a customer from 4G to 5G for NFL broadcasts, creating a custom backpack with 5G connectivity for streaming real-time HD video on location at NFL stadiums. So that's something that we've done with a number of NFL teams over the last few weeks, actually. So it's kind of been an upgrade from 4G to 5G. So those are two examples where we were able to take advantage of the combined 4G, 5G modem technology. We did have to upgrade the antennas, but we were able to convert them to 5G. And we found that the battery life, we actually did it on a battery pack, and we were able to get 8+ hours of constant streaming with a reasonably priced external battery powering the 5G modem. So we're starting to see more and more requests for those across the IntelliSite side.
Cool. So yeah, mobile video and mobile streaming is exploding. People are they're filming a lot of content on the move now versus taking things into the studio. That's obviously a trend that started with younger people, but if you think about everything going onto YouTube, everything going onto Instagram, people are moving more and they need to bring that connectivity with them. And that's something we can deliver and engineer. Next question on here was from Chris. Chris asked, what is the price on enterprise 4G LTE router that can later take the 5G modem installed inside? And then what is the estimated cost of the 5G modem that will be installed inside it? Okay, great question. There's a suite of routers coming out that are going to be upgradable. The lower end ones, so we deploy a ton of PepLink BR1 minis out there. That's one of our products. That one is not slated to have a 5G upgradable modem go inside of it, I don't think. Cradlepoint is coming out with the EN series that is upgradable. BroadSky bundles solutions together. And so we have a no CapEx model where you don't have to pay for the equipment up front. If you're looking at $1,000 a site times 50 sites, that CapEx could draw customers away. We'll just go ahead and bundle that in as part of the total solution. So we bundle the router, the service, the warranty, the single pane of glass management, everything that you saw just gets bundled into a no CapEx MRC based model. The upgrade cost on the 5G modems, I believe I've heard a number of about $2,500 to $3,000 as the first price point.
Yes, I'd say the average we're seeing is $2,000 and $3,000.
Yeah.
Those are these models.
So that's a fairly big pill to swallow, unless it's not, depending on where the customer comes from. And again, we're going to get into bundling that, but those are the sort of the initial costs we're going to be looking at. Now that price is going to come down as more and more modules get built and it scales up. What this kind of comes down to is your customers will be asking for 5G, and then we'll be at a point where, yes, we can deliver it. Here's the price as we sit today, and here's what it will deliver for you. Is that how much you want to pay for what you're going to get? Or do we want to take an interim solution and maybe get more speed in there now at a lower price point, let 5G bake in a little more, and then upgrade it as the components become less expensive? There's no right answer, but Mr. Customer, what would you like to do? So you're going to be in that conversation at the beginning, and it's just coming down to budget, speed, performance. And am I ready to do this now, or do I want to do something a little bit more interim? We can help guide you through that conversation versus getting caught up in a lot of hype and no one really knows what to do. So we're looking forward to having those conversations and just figuring out performance versus budget. Where do we sit? Is it time, or do we wait just a little bit until the pricing bakes out a little bit more like that? Okay. That was the last question.
Tom, I've got one more from Peter.
There's the last question on the chat side, and if I move back over to Q&A, there's a last question on the Q&A side. Peter asked, does your equipment service allow for failover from the primary wireless carrier to a secondary carrier if the primary tower fails? Oh, what a great question. Yes, that is called dual active SIM. What Peter's speaking to is, if I put a router out there, AT&T and AT&T happens to be the best one, and we fail over to AT&T, and AT&T is not there. Now what? And the answer is, you go to what's called active SIMs, which is deployable from BroadSky right now, and it's really pretty reasonable. We activate the second SIM, we include that in the data pool, but we don't attribute an actual gig plan to it. We just leave it there active, but not adding to the gig pool. That allows us to keep the cost down on that add-on component. And then what happens is, if AT&T is not there, we will turn off the AT&T SIM card. We'll activate, let's say, the Verizon SIM card or the T-Mobile SIM card. We'll activate the modem. We'll activate the software to access it. It's all the T-Mobile SIM is already active, but we'll change the firmware over so that it now goes to a T-Mobile SIM. We'll reach out to the T-Mobile tower, and now we'll start pulling down data from T-Mobile in that instance. The changeover to that is about 2 minutes from one carrier to the other. So we're talking about ultimate redundancy here. We've already failed over to a wireless carrier, and even if that wireless carrier isn't there, we can fail over to a different wireless carrier. I'm also going to expand on that. We also have the ability to, instead of going active, but only one at a time, I could deploy a router to you that is pulling signal from AT&T and T-Mobile at the same time and bonding them together. That would double your download speeds in any scenario. And then if one carrier disappears, you're already connected to the second carrier. And so that becomes an unbreakable internet connection on the failover side. And then finally, if I build up one step higher, within the PepLink family, they actually call it unbreakable internet, where it would fail over seamlessly. So if your wired circuit would disappear and you fail over to your wireless, all of your current sessions stay active. You don't lose your VoIP calls, you don't lose your VPN sessions, you don't lose your Zooms. They would just continue to be running. And so it's not just failover, it's really seamless failover. And that's the technology stack that Brad's guys will be talking about more and more in 2021. It's not just providing a wireless circuit that runs 15 meg. That was 2015 and it was cool, but that's not where we're at anymore. This is advanced considerably. And another question from Jared, how is multi-carrier bonding being achieved? Another great question. Thank God Bo's on this call. So there's two things you have to do in order to bond carriers together. One, you have to deploy a device that can do it, obviously. And then you have to activate 2 SIMs or 4 SIMs from two carriers or 4 carriers. Now we have the option of either bonding Verizon to Verizon, if Verizon, for instance, was the fastest carrier. Personally though, I would much rather bond a second different cell network in there, even if it doesn't perform as fast, because now I have that carrier diversity and I'm reaching out to 2 separate ones. So that's the first step in that, is putting the router out there can actually do the bonding. The second piece to that though is when you're downloading all across the internet and you're sending traffic all across the internet as well, but if you're sending it over 2 different circuits, how are you going to reassemble that so it's delivered as one information stream on the other side when you're considering you're going all over the internet for both the download and the upload? So the engineering on that, there's a back end to it that I'm going to let Bo speak to, but it's engineering an AWS or Azure cloud instance. We're actually reassembling the traffic at the cloud and then sending it over a single pipe that's connected to their cloud services. So that's my intro to that, but Bo can explain it in a little more detail.
That was very good.
Well, thank you.
So yeah, it's really a virtual appliance, and under our MSP, we handle the setup and configuration of that. Our preferred cloud service is AWS. They have a lot of different regions and availability zones, and so with that, we can expand out. You can have a multi-regional configuration where, you know, let's say your business is based on the West Coast. You can have most of your traffic where I'm at going to the AWS instance in Oregon, and then have the Northern California instance as a backup. Have it over, you know, some of that traffic can be directed over to East Coast, but regardless, it really is in that it's very similar to SD-WAN technology. You have the field unit and you have an endpoint where the packet reassembly occurs. So that's really the underlying technology behind that product, and it's not limited to virtual appliances. You can host this on-prem in a VM, a virtual machine of some type, or through a physical appliance that's part of this portfolio of products. And so that will reassemble packets from the different carriers, different circuits. You can layer terrestrial into this solution as well, and it will perform packet reassembly across any of the WAN sources that are connected to that box. So hopefully that's a good overview. If anybody wants to take a deeper dive in that, would love to set up some time and go through that in a little more detail.
Okay, great. Yeah, great answer. So traffic acceleration, speed on wireless, mobile HD wireless, anyone who's moving or any sensor out there, 2021 is going to be the year of wireless, and we're going to be there for you. So who do I reach out to find out and scope all these opportunities that are coming along? Please look at your map and please qualify yourself based on where you are, not where your opportunity is. Jim Miller in the Northwest, Maureen Donovan in the Southwest, Ash Kakish in the Midwest, Kevin in the Northeast, and Todd Hulsenbeck in the Southeast. That today concludes the Broad Sky. We have an hour and 9 minutes, so thank you for hanging on to that. This is our last webinar for 2020. Everybody enjoy the holidays, and we're looking forward to 2021. If you are on this call, you will receive a summary, a link. Yeah, it's a link to the recording of the entire webinar. So you can download the slide deck, and then you can also replay it, including all the Q&A if you'd like, for training purposes or for someone who wasn't able to make the call. So if you're on the call, yes, this will be distributed out to you, I believe this afternoon or tomorrow morning on a summary basis. So again, thank you for joining the webinar. And we look forward to talking to you in 2021. Thanks again. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.